Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Titanfall 2 Master Difficulty video walkthrough. This will emphasize on mobility and movement, because we're a pilot, not a soldier, so we're going to be going fast, we're going to be using bunny hops and air strafes, and altogether I'm going to be doing some slightly reckless play that should make this more exciting to watch than the average walkthrough for this game. This is the second mission of the game. It is called Blood and Rust, and I just did a bunch of movement to mitigate running through that zone with BT. But afterwards you need to get inside of him, because if you look at the water that's beneath us right now, it's corrosive. And when I went into this walkthrough, I had this ambition of spending as much time outside of BT as possible, just so I could show you, what a pilot has to do against such incredible odds as a bunch of these tones and what have you, these soldier titans here. But it turns out it's very difficult to do, because not only is a lot of the floor lava half the time, which disincentivizes you from leaving the Titan, but the enemy Titans on Master Difficulty will kill you in about one touch. They have aimbot, they just murk you instantly, and I did all kinds of high-flying antics to try and mantle them and kill them that way, and I got a bit of footage of that being successful, but for the most, it's just not viable, really. I can't put a video of me doing that and tell you that this is going to help you get through the game, because it simply won't. It's incredibly high risk, it's low reward, and everything can be 100% mitigated by spending time inside the Titan. So, as much as I would have loved to have shown you that different perspective for this game, it's not something that's going to be too functional for me to repeat and on a consistent basis. So instead, we're going to be using the, I think it's called Expedition Kit at the moment. I'm going to be using the Vortex Shield to reflect things. I'll be using electric smoke when I need to, and I'll be using the cluster missiles and the machine gun, and just thinning the troops. So if this is your first time through this level, the batteries on the ground, those green glowing life vessels, are key to success. Even if you're having a bad run, even if you're not doing too well, the batteries can keep you alive because they give you a heal. And in the campaign, your shield regenerates, which is a wonderful mechanic that enables you to stay alive much longer than you normally would be. Additionally, on top of this, you have a couple of allies in this initial fight, and if you keep them alive, you can actually get an achievement for doing so, but I do not recommend doing it on Master because they die very quickly. It can be done, of course, but it's much easier to do it on the lower difficulties. But here is a couple of brutes. The brutes are, I believe, Strider class Titans. They look a lot like North Star, but instead of having the railgun, they have the quad launcher, which is the only weapon at the moment that I don't believe you can use in the multiplayer, so be curious to see if we'll ever see that surface. But all I'm doing here is shooting him with the machine gun, the chain gun, and then when he fires a barrage at me, I'm casting them back at him. And I'm hopefully using this central pillar to keep me in cover so that my shields can come back. And I know at the top of this I'll be able to get the Tone Kit and a couple of batteries. So the Tone Kit, arguably the most powerful kit in the game when the game launched. The Tone Kit is still incredibly good, but it's not as good as it was in multiplayer. In campaign, it's just as devastating. A lot of the tweaks that were made to multiplayer Titans didn't 100% translate into single player, because I think they intentionally made it different, and you can tell if you play, because Tone just doesn't feel the same, and there are a lot of features that are different. But this is the first difficult fight of the game, I believe. It's against two fellow Tones. So you want to immediately put up your particle wall and build towards getting your core. Use your core to kill one of them, and then wait for your wall to come back and peek the other guy. You can just use the sonar ping to get you the extra lock-ons here, and you can use this metallic object in front of me as a bit of waste cover to try and make yourself a more difficult target. And then you can proceed to just hit him with the standard 40 mils and a couple of the rockets once you get the locks. And now we get to do some fun Titanfall stuff. So usually on this sequence, you want to just kind of kill everybody and move your way through, press the button and everything. And there's a couple of really fast ways of doing this, but I wanted to go with a more interesting one. So I'm going to jump up here onto this ventilation duct, channeling our inner Bruce Willis and Die Hard. And we're going to be moving, picking up potentially a fire star, but I didn't take it because I like the arc grenades. Moving into this area, using the cloak, hitting that first wall, bouncing off the middle platform, hooking over here onto this building, running on this wall, and then chaining the momentum to hop just over here onto this area. You can completely skip what I just did by hopping off of BT onto this dome and then using some kind of fiddly movement to get on top of it, but it doesn't look as fun, so I decided to keep the the longer path, but the more involved path. And then I bunny up through this room and start engaging these first few enemies with the flatline. The flatline is an incredibly powerful machine gun. It's one of the better assault rifles for damage, but it suffers when it comes to recoil and stability. So I'm going to be dropping it as quickly as I can for a better option, and a better option in my mind is the alternator, which is probably my favourite SMG. And you can tell how far I've come with this game, because when I first played, I never used this gun because I thought it looked all flimsy and silly. But it turns out that this gun has some of the best hipfire and accuracy from any gun, and a lot of power too. So I'm going to be using it a lot to my advantage here as we hop through these halls, we pass the Marvin, and then we try and land through this next doorway where there's a couple of guys waiting for us, so I give him a quick punch, and then at the end of this corridor there's a couple more dudes as well. And this particular sequence is going to introduce you to the Krabers, which you don't see too much in the campaign, which is probably a good thing, because the Kraber can kill you in 1 to 2 shots, and they're very accurate with it. So use the cloaking device to stop enemies from being able to target you as well, and use the mobility in the walls to push this corridor as quickly as possible, and be careful, because master difficulty you die real fast. And it's tricky, guys, it really is. Like, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing here is not optimal, because you have to play a lot of it like a shooter, and my objective here is to play it as little as a shooter as I can, and just show you what the movement can do. And as I hop over here, I get caught up on the wall, and I do die, so there's going to be a transition just there, as I transfer between where the checkpoint had triggered, and then we can hit through this and run forward. And there's a really fun shortcut that you can take there. Instead of going on the right-hand path that I did, you can wall run all the way to the left and just run on an empty area all the way around and get through it okay. But I did not figure that out, guys. I watched a speedrun at AGDQ, and they did it there, and it was a really, really cool strategy, so I thought I'd shout it out. And additionally, something else I learnt on that run is whenever the Stalkers are opening the doors, like he was doing just then, they don't have a hitbox, so you can feasibly run through them. But I always shoot them, and I do a nice little slow grind over the top of that grunt, which is always fun to do. And then we get into this very tricky room. So this room is tricky because the floor is corrosive, and there is a ton of Stalkers that have Mastiffs. The Mastiff is a gun that does incredible damage to you on master damage, and this doorway up here will not immediately open, so you're at the mercy of a couple of combatants. So I throw a quick arc grenade, I finish a couple of them off with the car, I regenerate, the door opens, I use my cloak, and then I'm going to carry some momentum here off the dash, up towards this wall, and hopefully get onto this wall and then onto this pipe. And something you need to be aware of here, which is kind of devilish and annoying, the Stalkers that you didn't kill will chase you. They are pursuers. They will pursue you to the ends of the earth, and they're going to be coming very quickly on the path that you've just traversed to try and get you. So you either slow it down here and get rid of them, or go even faster. And going fast on this next sequence is really tough to do because there's a lot of clutter on the roof, on the walls. It's very difficult, and you have to drop down here to go through this particular area unless there's some other alternative path that I'm not aware of, which there almost certainly will be. And then once you get in here, there's a couple of grunts waiting for you all who do incredible damage. And that grenade just then was to stop the Stalkers that are pushing forward, because the Stalkers killed me there. So I stun them with the arc grenade, I use the cloak to get past these two guys, I spin around and put them down, and here come the Stalkers trying to chase me, so I use a quick Ava blast, knocking them away, and we can push down this corridor. In this room there is a turret and a couple of soldiers. Be very careful here, because if you clip into them and they punch you, they will do like 99% of your HP. It's not a one-hit kill, which is very kind, because it could have been, but it's close to the most damage you can receive in a single interval. And here is the Stalker chasing me all the way back from where we began. So put him down, push forward. There's more Stalkers, by the way. That's how devilish they are when they're behind you. So now I have to commit to fighting them because they are chasing me. So I'm just going to jump around as being as evasive as I can, make myself a small target, a couple of shots there with the Ava to put him down. If you hit him in the back, he will detonate, but the detonation can do damage to you, so be very careful. And you'll notice that those ones weren't using Mastiffs, they were using L-Stars, which is just as dangerous, because it is a projectile weapon that does a lot of damage, and the AI probably never overheats, so be aware of that. But the door opens, and we can continue forward now. I'm going to use that wall to get some momentum so I can carry it through this donut, this torus area. You can jump up onto the outer ring and then start wall rising from there, but I was just kind of taking the scenic route here because I always kind of forget where I'm supposed to go at this point, and that's the reason why my movement died just then. And I kill the popcorn enemy that's probably not even an enemy. I go for the ladder jumps, but it doesn't quite detect and I end up falling, so we have to reset. I get some speed, hit to the half pipe, and then we go back into the rotation. And then from here, I'm going to back up on myself, because I don't want to take that path, and I'm going to go across this way, bounce on top of that, onto the pipe, and then from the pipe we can move forward. And for a second here I thought the Marvin was a bad guy, so that's the reason I turned around, and I ended up landing in the corrosion. So do not stand in that corrosive water, it kills you very quickly. But nothing in this room, a quick turn, quick pirouette, and we can blast through these air ducts and get to the next sequence. Blood and Rust is a pretty long level. There's a lot of equal pilot and Titan fun to be had, and it has one of the longest skirmishes that can be skipped, and I didn't know it could be skipped because once again I'd not seen the AGDQ marathon. So apparently on this sequence, if you talk to BT in a very specific manner, you can press the button and make sure he doesn't move from where he is, and if you wall run towards him near the kind of curtain of water, you can have him put you inside his cockpit through these walls, and you'll skip this entire sequence that I'm going to show you. And there's a good reason why the speedrunners skip this section, because it's very difficult. The premise is simple. Hit this button and then survive until the water stops and you can be reignited with BT. But I'm not entirely sure how all the triggers work here. I don't know if you have to kill a certain amount of people, I don't know if it's purely time-based. All I know is that there are times when it seems to take forever, and there are times when it seems to go quite quickly. And because I want to showcase movement and what you can do in this game when you get comfortable with the mobility, all I'm going to be doing is evading. I'm going to be dashing around, I'm going to be wall running, I'm going to be hopping, and I'm going to be keeping the soldiers and the ticks at bay, and essentially just having a good time. And this works about 90% of the time. The other 10%, the soldiers just instantly kill you because they do incredible damage. Like right now, I'm in trouble because I fell on the floor. When you're on the floor, you lose momentum, you lose mobility, and everything has an opportunity to shoot you. And there are a couple of walls here that are not the most generous, so you want to be careful of that. Like right just then, when I went towards the pipe, I wasn't on a favourable angle with it, and I didn't catch the wall, so I couldn't keep my movement going, and I ended up paying a price by getting put in a risky part. But coming down here, always cloak. Never ever come down this section without your cloak on, because the soldiers shoot you every time. It's not where you want to be, and all of this, as you see right now, is 100% improvised. I'm just kind of rotating back and forth, trying to waste time, trying to help this sequence to end. And I've looked at my original walkthrough for this, where I did a similar strategy but I killed some stuff, and I looked at the mobility one, and both times the time, it seems to last longer than you think it's going to last. So I'm not sure of the triggers, but just bear in mind they take a while. So I come down here, I'm going to be wall running on this side part. Be very careful with your runs here, because some of these walls can give you problems with the detection, and if you touch this water it starts to hurt. So more corrosive water, more tricky moments. This is another area that can be tricky to get wall runs off of, so be careful. A couple of soldiers there picking me up with some bullets. I get onto here and I stop so I can regenerate. My life is back. I'm wondering when this is going to end. I'm looking across there, I'm hoping that the water stops, and then the ticks turn up, so it's like, yep, it's time to leave. So back onto the central platform, back into the wall run, hopping across there with some air strafes to catch this wall, into that pipe, and then just continuing around. And this is really good practice, because if you can do this in the campaign, and you can then start trying to translate it into the multiplayer, and in the multiplayer, when you're incredibly evasive, it definitely pays off. But there are a couple of lessons that I've learned. Shooting while moving on controller is not easy. It's something that takes way more adjusting. And when you start moving and then you have to start shooting against something that shoots back just as capably as you can, that's when it becomes really difficult. And one of the things that I've noticed is the moment that I start fighting people, my movement goes to shit. Like, it's the weirdest thing. Your movement can be the best thing on the planet, and then when it starts kicking off, your movement is the first thing that dies, and you just kind of revert back to that, you know, panicked, primal Call of Duty player. And it's something that takes an immense amount of practice, and you need to be aware, guys, you're going to lose a lot of gunfights you would have won if you were moving around this game like everybody else. If you were just running on the floor, ADSing, doing all that kind of standard FPS stuff, you will win more gunfights, objectively. But if you can get good at shooting while moving like this, you will win more fights altogether, because you are so much harder to hit, you are so much more mobile, you are so much more deadly. But it's not going to come overnight. It takes an incredible amount of practice. And if you watch PC players, you can see just what's capable of once you get that practice in. And I'm not there yet, you know. I think many people are in the same boat, where you feel like you shouldn't do this because you would be so much more capable if you didn't. but then why the fuck are you playing Titanfall, you know? You could go to another game and see success there. So for me, I would rather die while being a moving target, trying to, you know, to play at a slightly higher level than the average Joe, than succeed a million times doing, you know, playing the game in that way. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with it, because the majority of console players who play Titanfall don't move, you know. Every time I see somebody who moves well on Xbox One, I send them a message, because it is so very difficult to do that while being competitive. And, you know, once you learn it, and once you get better at it, and once you get more natural at it, you probably don't even think about it. It just happens. It's all habitual at that point. But it wasn't achieved overnight, so it really is something to be respected. And I think I've sent 3 messages, and I'm a Gen 4 pilot, so I've put a couple of hours into the multiplayer. It's not like I've only played like 10 games, and I've only sent that many messages because everybody else just running on the floor. And it's that weird thing where you need all kinds of players for a game to be interesting. Because that's one of the things that was always so funny in Call of Duty with campers versus rushers. People used to think everybody should rush. Everybody should run around the maps, that should be how the game is played, and I've been guilty of that opinion many times. Still am in a lot of ways. But at the same time, you need the people who don't play like that to add to that diversification of the playstyles to give the game that feeling of an ecosystem of player mentality. If everybody was willing to run around running, shooting and gunning, probably wouldn't be Call of Duty, it'd probably be something like Quake, you know? Whereas when you have those slower paced people, you have the flank rights, don't you? Those times where you get behind them and you punish them for not moving, or those grenades that you've practiced, where you know exactly where to throw a grenade, you know exactly how long to cook it, and it gets those people in the window. You know, there are counter strategies to every strategy, and the fact that there are different playstyles just means that the game has a lot of facets that can be learned and enjoyed, and it means that everybody can play. Because when you think about it, when it comes right down to it, why don't people move in Titanfall? Why do they camp in buildings? Why do they sit on roofs? They do it because it's an advantageous position. They do it because they don't have to compete in a lot of ways. They are waiting for somebody to run in front of them so that they have an advantage in a gunfight, because they have a controlled environment and the other person has to react. And they're already acting while he's trying to react. It's a smart thing to do. It's just not the most fun thing to die to, and I think that's why a lot of people get so frustrated by it. And it's very similar to Titanfall. How many times have you been running, chaining wall jumps, feeling like a god, and then you die and you're like, shit, where was he? And then you look on the kill cam and he's watched you for the last 30 seconds because he can't fucking aim. So he's looking around like a nutcase trying to follow you, and the one moment where you mantled or you slowed down, boom, you were dead. You know? It happens. It's just how the game is. It's another tier of chaos that adds to the insanity of Titanfall. But here is Kane. So Kane is a Scorch. And the things you need to know about Scorchers are they are very susceptible to the Vortex Shield for casting back their projectile. Whenever he does the firewall, you need to move. Whenever he does any kind of thermite attack, you need to not stand in it. And you need to be aware that if you can keep this guy's shield down, there's not much he can do. So I like to use Tone because it's an incredible kit. It's got a tool for every situation. And I make quick work of Kane here. So now he's on his last life bar. You can execute him, but for some reason just then he died. And I wasn't too sure why. I wanted to do the execution, but alas, I couldn't get it. But thank you very much for watching. I hope that was entertaining to say the least. Something a little bit different with a game that you might not have realised could be played in such a manner. And even regardless of whether or not you move in Titanfall or you don't, or if you're a rusher or if you're a camper, as long as you're enjoying the game and you know you're playing it, that's all that matters, right? Thank you for watching. You take care now.